and welcome. You know, AIDS awareness is something that every community must deal with, and certainly no community has been more proactive here in the Bay Area than the Asian and Pacific Islander community. Tonight we're speaking with Lance Toma, Executive Director of ANPI Wellness. Welcome.
Thank you so much, David.
So, you were here a couple of years ago talking about your work, and I remember at that point we were saying, gosh, the recession is hard for the nonprofit sector, especially if you're a small community-based organization.
Yeah.
Is it better now?
It's still hard. I mean, we're still hanging in there, and it's still hard right now for a lot of us. Small organizations in communities of color, when we're dealing with HIV or even LGBT issues, organizations are struggling right now.
Right. Talk for those who aren't familiar with ANPI Wellness. What is your mission and who do you serve? And in what geographic area?
Sure. We are located in San Francisco, and we arose out of the HIV epidemic here in the Bay Area in the 80s. We've been around for 24 years providing HIV and health services, primarily to the Asian and Pacific Islander communities. We also offer a drop-in center for the transgender community of San Francisco. And in addition to that, we do a lot of national programs and advocacy and visibility around HIV in our API communities.
How much has your transgender practice or segment of your work grown over the last few years?
Our transgender programs have actually grown in an amazing kind of way. We've worked with the city to offer a drop-in center called Trans Thrive that's located in the Tenderloin. It's 5 days a week of wraparound services for the transgender community. It's a community that's hard hit around HIV, but also around a lot of other issues. So we provide mental health, employment services, substance abuse services, and a lot of social support.
Yeah, within the transgender community, I know that unemployment and underemployment is something like 3 times the average, even within the LGBT community at large.
Yeah.
So I imagine when you segment that even more into the transgender community that's part of the API community, that's a very specific target market.
Yeah, and I think transgenders of color have a hard time, but I think what we do is really provide support services. We provide leadership development opportunities. Our staff at Trans Thrive are all transgender folks who are really, really powerful in their communities and really powerful role models for the community.
Now, coming up in a few weeks, there is a national API Awareness Day.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about that,
Sure.
and I understand there's an event going on to
Yes.
call attention to it.
Thanks for bringing that up. 7 years ago, we partnered with the CDC, API Wellness Center and the CDC. We partnered to start a national Asian and Pacific Islander HIV
Meaning the
AIDS.
National Centers for Disease Control.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So we partnered with them to start a national API HIV/AIDS Awareness Day. And so for the past 7 years, May 19th is that day where we actually support organizations and cities throughout the country, even throughout the Pacific Islands, to produce awareness events so that in our communities we start to talk about HIV, because in our communities, in the API communities, we're not still talking about HIV, and that's what's really perpetuating the disease. And actually APIs are seeing some of the largest increases over the past few years in terms of new HIV incidents.
Now, is that within the United States or within the API community outside of the United States as well?
It's in the United States is what I'm referring to. Yeah.
And why do you think that is?
I think, I think one is that HIV is still propelled by stigma, and it's still propelled by shame and silence. And so the campaign that we produce is really about, let's talk about HIV. And saving face can't make you safe. And so in our community, saving face oftentimes is a way we protect our families and our communities, because what we do as individuals is a reflection on our families and communities.
Right.
And in this case, we have to start talking about it.
Now, I've heard this concept before, and I've always wondered, is this something that is overly dramatized or overly stereotyped, the concept of face specific with the ANPI community? It really exists.
Oh, I think so.
Explain
Yes.
to me what you mean by that, the concept of saving face or preserving face, specific to your community.
Well, what I know about it personally, and after talking to so many of my community members, it's really that when we are in public, or our actions are a direct reflection on our families. And we can't exist oftentimes outside of our families. And that's such an important part of our identity and how we walk in the world. And so being LGBT or being HIV positive or even talking about sexual health doesn't coincide with protecting our families and communities. But in this case, we have to break that down.
Now, every year you do a new public service campaign and a public service announcement that's shown on TV. So this will be the 7th year of this campaign. And that's what this campaign is all about, correct?
Yeah. Yes.
And is it produced locally? Who actually puts it together for you? Is it a local TV station, or is it all produced privately?
We put it together. So we actually work with different partners every year to produce the campaign. We come up with the theme. We work with a group of organizations across the country to actually figure out what the theme is. And we have a leadership council that works on that. And so this past year, we really focused on API gay men, young gay men, because the infection rates are really showing up that young gay men in our communities are affected. This year, we're focused on young women, because also young women in our communities are also getting HIV infected, and we want to really shed light on that.
Well, let's go ahead and take a look at that fine work and actually look at that public service announcement now. I'll give you some free airtime for it.
Great. Thank you so much.
Asians and Pacific Islanders are strong, diverse, and powerful.
But when it comes to talking about sex and HIV, we shut up and stay silent.
HIV isn't someone else's problem, it's ours.
1 in 3 Asians and Pacific Islanders living with HIV
Don't even know it.
saving face can't make you safe.
Talk about it.
For me,
For you, for everyone.
Go.
So what we just saw was an example of a PSA campaign you've had going for 7 years.
Yes.
Who were these people in the PSA? Were these actors or were these actual clients of ANPI Wellness?
They're a mix of both. So they're both, community members and folks that really stepped up and said they wanted to be part of this campaign in the video. Yeah.
In your ongoing work, and you've been now with ANPI Wellness for how many years?
For 11 years.
For 11 years.
Yeah.
How have you seen the epidemic change specific to the API community, but also within your organization? How has it changed?
You know, what I love is that we're such a diverse community. So at our organization, we're working in so many different of the API communities. We represent 40 different ethnicities, so many different languages. And so the work never ends in that way. So I think there's always work to do. And we're always actually expanding and really trying to come up with innovative programs that really target communities that are not getting targeted. So in San Francisco, we have such a diverse API community here. So we're able to do a lot of work here. We continue to do advocacy nationally, and what I'm excited about is we're really elevating the voices of APIs who are living with HIV. I think the other thing is about health access. What we see is that why this issue is such a big issue in our communities is that our community members have not often accessed the healthcare system because of cultural and linguistic issues and barriers. So we've actually expanded. We're opening a free medical clinic on site where we're able to provide medical care to API LGBTs who are not insured.
So in an age when it's hard to get financial support, individual support, corporate support, you're expanding your mission.
We are trying to,
That's
and we are
hard.
using volunteers to do it. That's where our resources are in our communities.
But now there are some corporations with big hearts and big checkbooks. Who are some of the organizations that do help you?
Well, we have a number. We have our event coming up on May 19th, so the same day as the National Asian Pacific Islander HIV Awareness Day is our big community event called Bloom. And so some of our sponsors in there include Roche, which is a big sponsor for us.
Roche Pharmaceuticals.
Roche Pharmaceuticals, and a number of other foundations and corporations that have really stepped up. Even OraSure has been a big supporter of us over the past 7 years in this fight for APIs and HIV. And so so please, we're excited for folks to come out. We're honoring a great couple in San Francisco, Jeff and Sandy Morey. They are our awardees this year. And so
Tell me about them.
They're an amazing couple that I admire. Jeff is the Executive Director of Asian American Recovery Services. Sandy, his wife, just retired from Kimochi, which is another really fabulous senior living organization in Japantown. And they've been tireless advocates for API health issues, but they have always been HIV advocates at the same time. And so I'm just so excited to honor them.
You know, a strange question, but we often forget, we think of Japan as this huge industrialized country, but that's part of the 40 groups that are under the API umbrella. What has happened in relation to the earthquake? Are you hearing about small groups that have been decimated by that disaster? I mean, has that impacted in some way your work at all?
Not so much my direct work, you know, and even, you know, I think what it is, it's more about how can we raise awareness and be part of this global effort to support the tragedy that's happened there, and you know, because we are a global community and we're connected, and we have folks who are still connected to there.
Do you have a story that, I mean, I'm sure in your 11 years at API that you've had many success stories, but one that sticks out as you said, boy, I helped this person just in our last few moments?
Yeah, well, so many, you know. But what I can say is, you know, what I see is that when people walk through the door, they really never realize that they could find a place that actually is run by Asian and Pacific Islanders, that is run by LGBT APIs.
So it's by and for
their
community.
Yeah.
We've been speaking with Lance Toma. We'll see you at Bloom, the fundraiser. Next up, author Greg Archer, and why it's cool to be pleasantly plump. We'll be right back.